Hello, hope y'all are doing well. It is November 6th, and today I'm back. So, today I'm going to be talking about the tropics. We have a little bit to talk about, actually, quite a lot. Uh, we have a potential tropical system that is going to be moving like in the general direction in Florida. Going to be talking about kind of what impacts can be expected in Florida and in surrounding areas. Then we're going to be looking towards towards kind of the mid to end kind of this like the middle to the end of this week at severe weather once again. So yeah, I hope y'all are all doing very well. Uh, it is Sunday, start of the new week. Uh, but yes, this is our tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have two disturbances right now. Excuse me, in the Atlantic. This one is the one that we're gonna want to watch. So, 90% chance of formation within the next 5 days, which is a very high percentage. This one up here also has a 70% chance. We're not really going to be talking about this today's video. I really want to focus on this one. This one's not going to be impacting uh, America, so uh, or the United States. So I'm not going to talk about that one, but we're going to talk about this one because a lot more impacts could be expected from this. From this one. So currently it is like pretty far out. I mean, it's not really affecting too many areas. It's about right there. It is right there. I mean, that's where it is. But then as we go into tomorrow morning, we can start to see it like in this like area we're looking at in the Atlantic here, 1,000 millibars. So could potentially like I mean could maybe become a tropical storm tomorrow. We'll have to see. I mean, it's definitely has the chance, I guess. National Hurricane Center, we're going to see what they'll do. Uh, But I mean, yeah, we can see. I mean, impacts across Florida can even be expected by Tuesday already. We can see it's a 993 millibar on the GFS here, which we're going to look at differences between the GFS and the European in just a second. But we're already seeing, some pretty gusty winds across Florida, even along maybe the coast of the southeast, considering we have the cold air damming also. So it's kind of creating a little bit more of a pressure gradient. Yeah, I mean, maybe even some showers and storms across eastern Florida. Nothing significant. As we go into Wednesday, though, like Wednesday evening, we're seeing more impacts across eastern Florida. I mean, and then like Wednesday after dark is when we really start to see everything become a bigger problem. 985 millibars, like a lower end hurricane there. But it doesn't mean we can't expect impacts. The 977 landfall is still a pretty big deal. And this pretty much just goes across Florida and then sort of brings a lot of rain and swings back into the Atlantic for a little bit and kind of does re-strengthen a little bit. What we see is still as like Thursday, as this is in Central Florida, where this is just going to bring a lot of wind to some areas, a pretty like large amount of like gusty winds as well up into like Georgia and South Carolina due to that cold air damming. There's a little bit of like pressure gradient winds due to this and the high pressure further to the north, so we see a little bit of some gusty winds. Nothing like what we're seeing in this area though. Not like tropical storm like hurricane force winds really though. Then that kind of moves or doesn't it moves into like Jacksonville, goes like over to Tampa, and then just curves up to Jacksonville, and then goes right along the East Coast, bringing some quick rain. I mean, some good rain even to South Carolina, North Carolina, which is good because some of those areas are in a drought. Which actually, let me pull up the drought monitor. So in the southeast here, I mean, some areas that are in a little bit of a drought could get a little bit of some rain. Of course, the areas that need it the most, which at this point is northern Georgia and the panhandle of Florida, which is also kind of directly like related to Ian's path. A lot of these areas haven't been getting a lot of rain over the past couple of months. And one reason these areas are a little bit in better conditions because they did get a lot of rain from Ian. But that didn't really make it in the Georgia or the Florida panhandle. Which, I mean, it's been raining. It rained a little bit this weekend because due to the storm system we have, but it's not enough. I mean, it's not going to get us out of a severe drought. I think the drought could potentially still, I don't think it's going to, like, we're going to see extreme drought introduced at all into the, like, northern Georgia with the new Thursday update this week, but I do think if it doesn't rain at all this week, we'll definitely see it next week for sure. But yeah, so that's the GFS. Wind gust wise, keep in mind some of this could be overdone a little bit. We saw that with uh, Ian. Uh, but I mean, yeah. So of course it's in kilometers. So you're gonna, I guess have. Let me just. I don't know why it's in kilometers when it's that close to America. Let me just. Okay. All right. Now we're in miles per hour. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, by winds, they were already seeing some tropical storm force gusts across areas of Florida, not full on tropical storm force winds, like barely tropical storm force gusts. And then we see like a little bit of some like hurricane force gusts come on land. Uh, Also, it is pretty windy across like Georgia, southern Georgia, central Georgia, South Carolina, like the low country of South Carolina, just due to those winds. There'll be a pretty big like wind field from this regarding just like general like gusty winds, but then the really significant winds will be limited to a pretty small area. Looking at the European, for example, or not for example, looking at the European just for differences on like strength or path, it makes landfall in a very similar location. A lot weaker though. This is only like a strong tropical storm. We're just looking at a lot of rain across Florida. Then a very can't go out, doesn't go out far enough, but let's go back to the 12Z. Yeah, very like similar path to the GFS. Goes over to Tampa, goes up to Jacksonville. Just kind of scrapes along the coast, bringing a lot of rain to areas of South and North Carolina, and none to Georgia or the Florida Panhandle practically, and then heads out, like leaving us with a lot of cold air behind, which we're not going to talk about in today's video, but just like a little brief overview, or not really like an overview, but going to be seeing like a pretty big pattern change this weekend behind this. A lot of cold air is going to move into the east, and so I mean the record temperatures we had today will slowly cool down this week, like to average, like a little bit above average, in the southeast or in other areas as well. Generally, some areas will actually cool down earlier, but like this week. But then later this week, everybody will pretty much be cool. So yeah, that's kind of what happens after this. But we don't want to focus on after this right now because this is a pretty big deal. I haven't seen. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of like. I haven't seen anybody really talking about this on like Twitter. There's been like. And also, I mean, it just seems like this is kind of nobody's really making this into. It's not a big deal, I wouldn't say, but it's something that needs to be talked about. And there's going to be impacts from this for sure. You can see gusts on the European much different. I mean, really, most areas just gust like 40 along the coast, maybe 50, but that's it. Still, though, pretty windy across southern Georgia there, so that's interesting. But yeah, so that is this potential tropical system. After it impacts that area of the southeast, it moves, up the coast and then turns into a nor'easter, just bringing some wind to like very quick moving as well. Yeah, I mean that in 6 hours it just like completely just leaves there. Or not in 6 hours, but it's like 12 hours. It goes all the way from the coast of like Delaware up to almost Nova Scotia, so very quick there on the GFS. Which we're not. I mean, we'll get into like the threat, like the impacts, like later, like earlier this week. Or also, we also had this really big snowstorm in the northern plains there to talk about as well. But yeah, I mean, we could be seeing a lot of rain in the northeast from these two storm systems, kind of like interacting with each other as well. So. Yeah, this week is going to be active for sure compared to previous weeks. So yeah, now talking about severe weather and that winter storm. So this is the 500 millibar winds. We got a good looking setup for severe weather, like once again in the center of the country. Looking at, precipitation type here. We can see we're going to be, I mean, this is going to be in the west up until like Wednesday. Evening and the Thursday when this ejects into the plains, but just look at the snow in the north. But that's a blizzard right there. I mean, we're gonna be looking at, we're gonna have the wind, the snow, just a ton of snow across South Dakota, North Dakota, and even like Minnesota there. Not, I mean, really, Minneapolis does get in on the snow, but like right when the low passes over them. Looking at wind gusts with this, I'm curious to see what the GFS has. yeah, a large area like wing us in the 50s and like 40s. So yeah, that's what's gonna be like really causing that. Looking at the European, which I don't know if the 18Z will go out far enough, which I think it will barely note. But yeah, we can see a little bit there, but let's go back to the 12Z. So yeah, I mean Thursday, we see this eject Thursday morning. We already got a lot of snow and wind into areas of South Dakota, North Dakota, like Wyoming and Montana. My bad. Also, a lot of heavy rain in the northern side of this. And just looking at this just sits here for a while, just dumping snow across North Dakota and South Dakota. Very similar solution to the GFS there, actually. I want to compare the two winter or snowfall wise here. So, oh my gosh, it's a lot of snow. Okay, so let me just. Okay, so the European has a wide swath of more than a foot for areas of South Dakota, North Dakota, Bismarck, Grand Forks, and then into northwest Minnesota. Also snow like further south of that, just not as much in the Minneapolis, even a little bit of accumulating snow there. GFS, pretty similar. Or that's not the GFS. GFS is very similar, actually, a little further like south and also a little bit larger of an area affected by this significant accumulations. But there's a big swath of like over 30 inches on both of these models, which is, I mean, in this year, I mean, 50 inches. I think that's overdone a little bit, but we'll definitely see some areas potentially get up to 30 inches. The Canadian's lower. If I had to guess why, probably there's just less moisture. That kind of happens with the Canadian due to it always being colder. But yeah, I mean, it's still impactful though. I mean, several inches also in Minneapolis. So yeah, that's our big kind of winter storm. We're gonna be watching this week. We're gonna look at it like a little more in depth, like as we get closer to it. Because we still have several days. Which, I mean, the models are actually, I'd say the GFS and the European are doing pretty good, like agreeing with each other recently. I mean, I'm pretty surprised, to be honest. So yeah, severe weather-wise though, in the central U.S., we're gonna be looking at that potential for severe weather Wednesday or probably Thursday. Yeah, really Thursday. Just look at that negative tilt trough push in here. Very good looking setup for severe weather, especially like right in front of that area right there. Looking at dew points, for example. So dew points. We got a very clear area of dew points in the like in the upper 50s into the 60s, with our surface low located right here. Got a nice little triple point setup. Take a little box down. And I mean, yeah, that pretty much shows us what's going on. We have marginal instability, a decent hodograph, supportive of some, supportive of a few supercells. I mean, yeah, you could see some supercells out of this, but it looks mainly linear. But as we get closer to this, though, I definitely think we'll see a severe weather event Thursday. Probably, I'll outline the areas I expect in a second. That we could see it. Let me just pull it back up. 2.0C. Let's see if we just have the Euro mainly agreeing. So yeah, the Euro does pretty much agree with the GFS, like regarding the placement of the low. Yeah, very similar. So I really generally feel like I feel like we'll see severe weather. I mean, maybe as far north as like Minnesota, but definitely across this area here, I kind of think we could see it. But yeah, thank you for watching the video. It's pretty much all I got. A very active week considering you have this winter storm, severe weather threat, and tropical threats in Florida and along the East Coast. But yeah, so thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I should be back tomorrow considering the active, because there's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, goodbye.